Hey guys, welcome to the Eternal Spoiler Breakdown. My name is Pojo, and today we are talking about a few more cards out of Into Shadow, which I believe releases tomorrow. We're going to be doing a stream around 6:30 PST tomorrow night. We'll definitely be going through the campaign, getting all the cards, playing around with them, doing some brews, just having ourselves a delightful time. But first things first, there's 3 new spoilers to talk about that are going to be coming out with the set, I believe, tomorrow, if it is tomorrow. Like, it was announced on Discord, which means it's probably a soft date, might get moved depending on if they need to work on it more. Regardless, let's talk about Enemy of My Enemy, the first card that was spoiled, and a card that was spoiled with the announcement of Into Shadows, or the next chapter, basically with all the lore updates. So in the lore updates, we have a bunch of people all banding together to fight off whatever's going on in the Shadowlands. Like, people are actually getting together and doing things. They're gonna do like a sort of joint co-op ruler situation. It's pretty interesting, and this is one of those cards where that thing is actually happening. It's the card where Caleb and Eileen decide to put aside their differences and go basically hang out with Delir. It's called Enemy of My Enemy, and it is one of the first, but not the only, tricolor cards. Fire, Justice, Primal. Create and draw a random warrior, paladin, and dragon for 8. Enemy of My Enemy costs 4 less if you have a Caleb, and 4 less if you have an Eileen. I don't think it's been specified if you have to actually have the Eileen or the Caleb out in play yet. I assume that's actually something that has been cleared up, but yeah. So this card, I believe you do have to have the card out, but nonetheless, it's pretty cool. So yeah, like, this card is more flavor than like good. I don't know why I just closed Eternal. It's because I am a strange person. And I was trying to find something. All right. So yeah, as far as like what's going on with this card, this is more of a lore card. It's definitely like expressing a story beat in a pretty interesting way, and I actually really like the way that it does express that story beat. Oh yeah, I've totally lost my chat. There we go. So like, what this gives you is 3 cards that are going to be mostly okay. The dragon in particular is going to be strong. The paladin and the warrior are both going to be pretty likely to be okay. There are some good warriors in particular that can be really, really nuts. Paladins tend to be very middle of the road, cheap creatures that you can play that you'll get a lot of benefit out of. So like, overall, it's a decent amount of cards for potentially 0 cost. It is an 8 cost card that can be cast to draw 3 cards, and it has interesting influence, which means that if you're playing in a 3-color deck, you don't have to go super high on influence to play this card as a top end, and you'll get pretty good benefits out of it in terms of what you're doing. But, you know, if you're going super deep into like Temporal or something like that, if you've got a big removal pile set up and you're going deep into Channel the Tempest or Leave a Witness or anything along those lines, those are going to be better top ends for your deck. So this is going to be a little bit interesting. Now, if you do have Caleb, then it becomes a little bit more of an interesting proposition. Caleb Uncrowned Prince, the 8-cost charger, does not really do much for this card, just because if you play Caleb, you probably just won. Like, that card is just the charge card that wins the game in Fire. If you have a lot of Fire cards, you feel pretty good about it. Overall, that just seems like it's going to do exactly what you want it to do. So this is more of a Caleb Reborn card. Caleb Reborn is a card that is perfectly playable in a lot of Skycrag lists, including spell-focused lists that use cards like Damaris the Geomancer, anything along those lines. This is a harder deck to build. No one's really gotten the meta quite right for it, so it's really interesting to see if that's going to be a possible like ranked deck that might actually get built with it. With Eileen, again, like, I don't think that I think both Eileens actually do work pretty well with this one. Eileen can play this card off of her trigger. The mono blue Eileen can do that just by playing a snowball, getting Enemy of My Enemy. She likes Channel the Tempest just as well, but having a decent 4-cost card that can also be played with Caleb means that you can do Caleb and Eileen, the Queen of the Wilds, for like a really, really decent amount of benefit. Like, you can just play Eileen, immediately Enemy of My Enemy. It's a blue spell, so you get to Channel the Tempest as well, or you get to Enemy of My Enemy again. So Caleb into Eileen, Enemy of My Enemy is not at all a bad play, and that seems like a pretty exciting way to basically put that deck together and get some neat spells going on. Eileen, of course, Eileen Clan Mother, the 6/7 for 7 in Double Justice and Double Primal, is very, very powerful all on her own, and with a little bit of Enemy of My Enemy backup, that seems like it's going to be pretty strong. Like, she doesn't play super well with Caleb Reborn, but she's a perfectly fine card on her own, and if you're playing that and a bunch of like just value units with Enemy of My Enemy, then this is decent backup. You can probably do some pretty cool stuff. Hey, thanks for the raid, Endkeeper. Good to see you. So yeah, like overall, like there's some potential strengths to this card. You do really have to have either Caleb or Eileen to make it work. There's another slight possibility for playing like 5-color decks where if you're playing like really, really big piles of cards with like Nyctotraxian decks, anything where you have like a wide spread of influence, these 3-color wedge cards are actually really strong in that respect because they don't require you to go too deep on any particular influence, which means you can spread around, get the best cards out of your lists, and then you can play Enemy My Enemy and get, you know, some decent filler to make sure that you have something to do in addition to the best cards in the list. So if you're playing like an End of Days style deck, then this might be something that you could actually play as the top end to that as well. So those are all of like the sort of available options that I see as far as Enemy of My Enemy builds go. As far as this card goes, I think it's a flavor win. I think it's really, really interesting from a deck building perspective. The Warrior, Paladin, and Dragon are gonna be like, you know, in between exciting and not that good. It's probably not a spiky card. It's probably not a card that's going to like win tournaments, but it's definitely a card that's going to be fun to play in ranked, and I can see some decks that could be pretty decent with it. So yeah, I'm very much into this card. It's really, really cool. I hope it's a solid one for the campaign, and it seems pretty cool. Next one is actually might be my favorite of the 3. It's a little bit more simple and elegant, but gosh, I like it. Okay, so this is Reckless Warhowler. It's a 3-cost 3/3 dinosaur, and it has Inspire, units you draw get Killer. We finally got the Killer Inspire unit, and it's got Reckless on it, which is a perfect drawback, like just A+. A Killer Inspire is a really, really powerful effect. Like that is just like super nuts. This is just like an incredibly powerful setup, so like that is just like real good. So basically you do have to have a drawback, and the drawback here is that your dinosaurs are going to be very, very aggressive. So the way Trumpeting Warhowler works is that you play aggressive dinosaurs, possibly like that blue, purple, shadow, Nightfall dinosaur deck that never seems to quite work, but might work now. It might work now, guys. We're going to keep trying. Yeah, and like overall, like this is definitely something that does actually get you to do that. So you play the Warhowler, then you draw a bunch of killer dinosaurs. The killer dinosaurs constantly clear the way for the Warhowler so you can continue to be aggressive with it. This would be a psychotic draft card. In ranked, I think it's probably okay, just because like lots of killer dinos are definitely good, and if you're playing like, say, just straight Elysian dinos with Thundering Karasaur, then getting a lot of extra killer effects is pretty strong. If you're playing blue-purple dinos where you just have like a lot of good aggressive stuff, like yeah, dinosaurs are really, really good units to play. Their entire weakness is that they don't have interactivity, and Trumpeting Warhowler is a card that forces interactivity out of dinosaurs. So in Nightfall dinos, this is going to be a pretty cool card, and who knows, maybe we'll finally see it. Also, this is a really weird dino, if you haven't noticed. It is a blue dino, but it's got horns in weird places, and it's kind of hanging out in what I would consider to be the Felnwood or something along those lines. So we have what essentially is a Shadowlands corrupted dinosaur. I think there may have been a few of these in the past, but that's still an interesting story beat to see. So yeah, maybe the new campaign will actually talk about why dinosaurs are in the game and what they do. All right, the last card is a hose. It's a pretty fun one. It's called Aramont the Gathering Dark. And this is a 3/6 flyer for 6, double shadow, flying. When it hits the enemy player, they discard cards from their deck until they discard a unit. And it has charge while there are no enemy units. Okay, so nightmare cards are interesting. This card definitely does a lot of fascinating things. So the main thing that this card does, obviously, is just kill Temporal. Like, if you wanted a Temporal answer, this is the card where you just play it and bye. um, you can obviously get into trouble still. Like, any temporal deck has lots of ways to defend itself, but having that one card that just instantly kills a unitless control deck when they are like caught with their pants down, that's very, very good. Like, this is definitely something that you want to have as like an answer to these cards. It is your Corendon Merchant like setup of choice. I like it over a Zindil's Gift for like anti-control. This seems like a solid card because it just basically makes them discard until everything's gone. Like, it does potentially hit like Desert Marshal, Aurelian Merchant, those kind of cards, but nonetheless, it's pretty good discard. You can do crazy things against unitless control, and like, I think that's kind of interesting. But also, like, you're playing this card with a lot of interesting mill strats, right? Like, you're playing it with Solitude, you're playing it with the usual Stonescar Manacles. So there are some interesting potential mill deck strategies that you can play with here that's going to be pretty good. And yeah, like, overall the stat line looks pretty decent. I think it's a pretty interesting hate card. Definitely hates on control decks in a pretty interesting way. And it also forces like a lot of cards into their void, which is something that you can have a lot of fun with if you're deciding to play around with stuff. So yeah, I think this is pretty crazy. Could definitely be something worth running that could definitely make a big difference as far as what you want to do. So yeah, Aramont the Gathering Dark seems like a cool hate card. I don't think it's particularly powerful on its own. It's just something you toss in the market. But like, overall, it seems fun, and I would be interested in playing like an actual mill archetype now. So that's something that Aramont has done that Solitude has not. So we will see that soon. Okay, so that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching, to the YouTube folks, to the Twitch folks. Let's get back to some games.